Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of our podcast, the Sixer Sense Podcast. I'm Lucas. I got Chris and Uriah here yet again, guys. It's been a long week. We haven't got together since last Sunday, and Chris has been longer. Condolences to you and your family, of course. But we got a lot of things to talk about. But before we get into that, I gotta say, Uriah, I'm pretty jealous of you because you got to go see my boys in real life. And I'm not talking about the Sixers because we all love the Sixers, but Uriah got to go see the Delaware Bluecoats, which is my home state team, play in action. So, Uriah, before we get into the podcast, tell us a little bit of your thoughts from the game.
I have to start off by saying I'm an idiot because here's why. So I get to the Bluecoats game, my first time covering the Delaware Bluecoats for Philly Sports Network. So I go down, I get there 2 hours early, and I get a chance to see guys warming up. Skylar Mays and some of the other players on the Toronto 905. And I'm trying to figure out, all right, where am I going to set up at? I know there's a media table, but, everybody's still setting up. So I go to this young kid. He's obviously works there. He's a blue coat shirt on. I said, hey, man, I'm trying to set up and I need to get connected to Wi-Fi. I was like, do you know the Wi-Fi password? So he says, actually, I don't. But that guy over there with the suit on, he probably knows. He's the president of the Bluecoats.
Oh, you're talking about Alex Yor?
Right. So
yeah,
I'm thinking, all right, sure, why not? So I go over and I ask him to introduce myself, and he kind of stares at me like, who are you? He's never seen me before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get connected to the Wi-Fi. Can you help me out? And he gave me this long answer that I couldn't hear because the noise was blasting or the music was. So he told me to, put my email in or whatever. And then, of course, it didn't work. And then finally, I got this piece of paper with the Wi-Fi information on it. And I would type it in my laptop, and it's still not working. I ended up getting on, but it was cool. As far as the Bluecoats, the talent-wise, they scored a lot of points. I think they scored 141 points. Michael Foster Jr. Is probably, I guess, their best offensive player without Jaden Springer on. And I know Chris likes that. But he actually didn't play that great that night. The night really belonged to Mac McClung, who scored 44 points. They had no answer for him. Toronto could not do anything with him. And he scored in any possible way you can. Oh, he scored from everywhere. But he's so fluid and good with the ball. And once he got warmed up,
he's a former All-American, right?
Yeah, they played with Georgetown for a hot minute, but he's good. I'm thinking, man, if you got all these guards down for the Sixers, they'll call him up.
Look, the sad thing is that they don't allow 10-day contracts, I think, until January, right, Chris, if I remember correctly?
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they allow 10 days until January, or at least December. I'm pretty sure it's January, though. So sadly, look, and we'll talk about the injury woes and what I think they should do about it, and I'm sure Chris has his own opinions. He probably will not agree with me on this if I had to guess about potential free agent signings.
Just sign really bad players.
Hey now. Look, I think there's better options out there, but I'm thinking of players that Doc Rivers would actually want to play. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
His level. Okay.
Right, let's get to
Okay.
Let's get to the Timberwolves game because I was actually at the game last night. My wife, she treated me for my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday! What are you now?
Very
like
much.
85?
See, I was gonna go out my way to say after tonight, no more old jokes because Chris already called me an old head, and then they printed it in this article for
I saw that. That was funny.
The old head podcaster, but no. In all seriousness, the Timberwolves game, we were there last night. It was an ugly game up until the last 3 minutes of the game because Minnesota had control pretty much the entire game. Here's some team stats before you guys go and analyze everything. The Sixers and the Timberwolves both shot 47%, but they made a few more threes than we did. They got to the line more often than we did. The Timberwolves out-rebounded the Sixers 43-39. They were sharing the ball more freely, 28 assists to 21 for the Sixers. And at the end of the day, when it comes to points in the paint, when you have Rudy Gobert and Cat, down low. They're going to feast, and with Embiid by himself anchoring the middle, they out-rebounded us. Or I'm sorry, the points in the paint was 48-36. So let's go to Lucas first. What can we say about the game that they lost last night against the Timberwolves?
Look, the Sixers had no business in being in that game at all, but they were able to cut their way back, and a lot of it has to go to, Joel Embiid had another 32-point game. I think he's probably had one of the hottest streaks in NBA history. Prior to the game, I think he scored like over 130 points, which is like the best in NBA history. Yeah, I could be wrong, but like it's pretty darn close, right? And then you got Shake Milton, who had like that vintage, like 2 or 3 Shake Milton games that you had during the regular season with 27 points, really efficient shooting. Melton did everything you wanted him to do. So, like, look, the Timberwolves have a lot of problems, and the Sixers were able to capitalize that in the last couple of minutes. They just weren't able to pull it off because it's kind of like a bogus call on Georges Niang the last like 10 seconds.
Oh.
So, like, that's just my opinion. But look, Joel Embiid's going to carry the load, especially with like 3 starters out. It's surprising that we even got back into this. So kudos to the Sixers. Like, moral victories are never like really fun, but this is certainly. I think this is a moral victory in terms of had no business being in the game and was able to make it a really close game at the end.
Yeah, good points all around, Lucas. I mean, it was the second night of a back-to-back. That's always pretty tough for any team. And when you're down as many guys as Philly was, you could certainly feel the effects of that at various points throughout the game with Joel and with everyone. But like you said, Joel continues to put together some pretty ridiculous games here. 32 points on only 15 shots. Got to the free throw line 20 times. Put Gobert and Naz Reid and those guys in foul trouble. Milton, 27 points, stepped in to the maxi void and performed pretty well. I think we all talked up the Sixers depth chart quite a bit before the season, and we've maybe been a little bit disappointed, but Shake was kind of that extra guy who wasn't really playing, who we all know is an NBA-level player and who is now looking pretty good when the Sixers need him. So that was nice to see. Another pretty solid Melton game in a bigger role than he is used to and maybe equipped for, but he played well all the same, does a lot of great things on both sides of the ball. And, I mean, at the end of the day, a 3-point loss, even though, like you said, it really shouldn't have been a 3-point loss on the second night of a back-to-back to a pretty good team, it's understandable. It's not the end of the world.
Like I said, moral victory, for sure.
It's really, I don't think, anything to write home about. I'm not worried about it in any significant way. Other than the fact that Philly is missing 3 of their top 4 guys. Like, that's worrying, but we'll talk about that. That's not a Minnesota issue.
Yeah, when he went down in the fourth quarter, Joel Embiid, and his ankle got caught underneath, I think it was Niang, the entire building got quiet instantaneously. And there was this overall collective feeling of dread. We were like, "Oh my God, we're gonna be missing our whole starting lineup." But as far as it is a moral victory. They had no business in this game. I agree with both of you. But that one last play, I don't know if you remember when he picked the pocket of whoever, Melton, and he was going up for a
layup, and then I feel like he got fouled on that. We were,
it was huge, big jumbotron right above us, and they showed it at least 6 times. Whoever was, I guess, contesting that shot,
I think it was Anthony Edwards,
pushed him in the back.
Yeah,
you could clearly see a hand like push him in the back, but they didn't call that. So me being the angry fan I yelled. It was like, "Get off DraftKings, refs!" Because the spread, I think it was Minnesota minus 3.5, and I'm like, wow, this is just too close to call. But I don't know. I'm not going to complain about the refs because that's Doc Rivers' job.
Refs kind of swallow the whistles in the last couple seconds too. So like, because they don't want it to be decided on free throws. You know how it is.
Yeah, but
no. Look, I agree with you.
There was through that whole game. There were some questionable plays. Very questionable.
I mean, look,
plays.
Joel got to the foul line for 20 times. That's, They still got plenty of whistles.
All right, let's talk about the Timberwolves a little bit because they made some really interesting moves in the offseason. And I know Chris just can't wait to talk about his guy, Gobert. And I'll go to Chris first. After watching them play together, Chris, what are your thoughts about Cat and Gobert coexisting in the lineup and Anthony Edwards and just the team as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there have been some growing pains. I don't think it has meshed particularly fast, and I think there's some valid reasons for concern, but also, like, they're 8-8. Could be worse. We're 16 games into the season. I think people are prisoners of the moment a lot in the NBA. I mean, I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it, but it's 16 games. They have plenty of time to figure stuff out. You know, no matter what your opinion on Gobert is, I think it's fair to say that he's a very good player. How good he is up for debate, but we know that Gobert is an impactful, positive NBA player. Like, they have plenty of time to figure it out. I think Edwards and Russell in particular have really maybe, you know, hit a couple of snags when it comes to trying to figure out how to play with Gobert. I think they're used to last year where it was 5 out, up-tempo, attack downhill. It's a little different with Gobert. He changes the calculus of that offense, and they've struggled to kind of adjust. But they've survived 16 games. They're not underwater or anything like that. They have plenty of time to figure it out. So I'm generally, like, I think they'll be okay long-term.
Yeah, no, look, I think that there's a chance that they'll be fine, but there's a couple things that need to change. First off, I want to agree with you on the offensive point. Look, 5 out, Karl Anthony Towns was a matchup nightmare on offense for opposing teams. He's just a stretch 4 now. Like, and he struggles defensively. Like, we all knew that was going to happen. And, like, yes, he's a really good 3-point shooter, but he does so much more in the paint, and with Gobert there, it kind of limits that to an extent. And yeah, D'Angelo Russell has looked awful this year. This is probably one of his worst career years. Ant came into training camp out of shape, and doesn't have the lane open. Like, look, Gobert's always going to be occupying the lane. That's just a fact. So getting wide open dunks is not going to be as easy for him. He needs to adjust his game. He's also only 22 years old, so he's young. He needs, they expect him to be the franchise guy, and I'm sure he will be, but it's going to take time for that to happen. Like, especially with the change in offense that it is, like, it's going to take some time. The other thing that I really want to talk about with the Timberwolves is not so much what's happening, in terms of skills, as in terms of personality and cohesion. Because you've heard rumbles. I'm sure you guys have heard rumbles about, Cat calling out Ant for his shape, Ant calling out the big men for clogging up the lane, D'Angelo Russell not realizing that he was subbed in, so it was on 4-on-5 on defense at one point. And they lost Patrick Beverley. That's a big locker room loss because he's that glue guy. They don't have him anymore. They don't have that type of guy in the locker room. And
not really helping the Lakers out.
I mean, look. I mean, I'm just saying.
The Lakers are a bunch of vets, though. They got a bunch of vets.
These are young guys that need a guy like Patrick Beverley.
Yeah, sure.
So my point being here is that they're missing that locker room cohesion that he brought. And look, I don't think Chris Finch is the right guy. I don't. Like, he's an okay head coach, but for this group, you need to have a veteran head coach. He's only in his second season, first full season. They need more. Actually, no, is this his second season or third season? It doesn't matter. He's still a pretty young head coach. So I think it's more chemistry than it is on-court stuff. That's what I think is going on with them.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because Kevin O'Connor on their podcast, he's mentioned several times in several podcasts.
I've listened to it. I agree with him absolutely.
He was talking about this rift and Gobert not really being liked on the team. But I'll tell you what, sitting there on the court last night, he threw an alley-oop to Gobert in a critical moment of the game, and they were high-fiving. I was like, looks like it's love right now. But I guess when you're winning, everything's love.
Yeah, everything's better when you're winning. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just give it time. Like, on paper, Gobert should
I'm willing to give it more time.
A lot.
I absolutely am willing to give him more time. I think they need another ball if we're talking about needs there, I think they need a smoother 3 and D, because I think McDaniels is the 4 and they're playing him at the 3. And I think they need another ball creator, like D'Angelo. They need to upgrade from D'Angelo Russell, I think.
Yeah. I would agree.
All right, let's go on to the next topic. The next topic is, well, the Milwaukee Bucks were in town on Friday night, and that game had nothing short of extra drama from beginning to end. Some really not so good news that you guys will get into related to a key injury. But if I go to the team stats, it actually was pretty tight across the board. The really true distinction between these two teams on Friday night was the 3-point shooting. The Bucks got up 36 3-pointers, but only made 12. The Sixers, they got up 28 points or 28 3-pointers and made 13. Giannis did what Giannis does. Embiid led the Sixers in scoring. But what are your takeaways, Lucas, of the Bucks game?
So first off, I think Joel got lucky to get a flagrant one in that game. To be completely honest, I think he probably should have gotten a flagrant 2, because he threw his arm into that. Look, I agree with Dorsberg. I think that was a flagrant 2. I mean, do you call it? I don't know, because it is a big matchup, but by letter of the law, I think that was a flagrant 2. That being said, look, Giannis struggled in this game. We talk about 25 and 14. That's a bad game for Giannis, and especially because he went 4 of 15 from the foul line. That's how the Sixers won that game. He could not hit a free throw. He also had 5 turnovers. Brook Lopez did not look like the monster he was in the previous game earlier in the, the second game of the regular season? He looked like he still had 4 blocks, and I think at least 2 were on Joel. But Joel had a much better game. One of his better games of the season for sure. 32 points, 26 shots, 8 assists, 3 blocks. Then we could talk, I'll leave the Tyrese Maxey stuff to Chris. But overall, this was a team effort. You got bench contributions from Georges Niang and Shake Milton. And I don't think, it was Drew Holiday's first game back. He was coming off the bench. That certainly did not help their case.
He looked rusty. He looked
rusty. Yeah. And Javon Carter, who started in his place, didn't look the best. They're still missing a few rotation guys. But look, the Sixers, especially after the Maxey injury, nobody expected the Sixers to win that, especially when they were down at halftime. It was nice to see that they were able to bounce back and pull out a win and play some of the best defense I think we've ever really seen them play.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I pretty much agree with you again across the board, Lucas. Obviously, by his extremely highest standards, this is about as bad as you're going to get from Giannis. He's, as the free throws are an issue for him. He's just not going to go 4 or 15 very often, and he made some pretty questionable decisions as far as shot distribution and where he took his shots. So they were treated as something of a bad Giannis game, which helped a lot down the stretch. And like you mentioned, Drew Holiday just coming back. Still no Chris Middleton. That was just by no means a full-strength Bucks team. But it's pretty impressive to rally like Philly did, given the circumstances. Obviously, Tyrese going down with a left foot injury. That's going to keep him out a few weeks now. He had 24 points at halftime.
Minor fracture in the foot, 3 to 4 weeks, which we'll certainly talk about later.
Yeah, so, awesome first half from Tyrese. Also, of note, he played 21 of 24 first half minutes. It's fair to point to the fact that Tyrese has been playing more minutes than just about anyone in the NBA so far, and that maybe wasn't the ideal situation for anyone. As young as he is, it's still not great to play guys that many minutes, whether you need it or not.
I don't think let me just interject real quick. I don't think that the minutes were the reason why he had the foot injury. I think it was a freak play. It looked like an ankle sprain in replay. I think everybody can agree there. It was a freak play. I don't think minutes had to do anything with that.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, end of the day, Joel didn't have a great first half, but he closed big time for which has just been what he's been doing lately. He's had some monster fourth quarters. Obviously, the Utah game being the prime example of that. And like I thought, your Brook Lopez point, I don't agree with. I thought he looked really good. Like Joel just made more mid-range jumpers than he did in the second. Like there's not much that Brook can do about that specifically. And Joel's an awesome player. He's going to beat good defense all the time. But yeah, like Milwaukee and Boston are the teams to beat. That's a team that Philly's going to have to go through potentially if they want to get where they want to go in the Eastern Conference. So it's a really good win, shorthanded. Melton was awesome. Yang was awesome. They got a lot of contributions up and down the roster. We'll talk about the Montrez thing. His contributions may be coming post-game, but a lot of good stuff from Philly overall.
Yeah, speaking of Montrezl Harrell, let's get to the controversy that has been spreading all over social media the past 48 hours or whenever after the Bucks lost to the Sixers. So if you have been living under a rock and you didn't see the game or the controversial moment with Giannis Antetokounmpo, basically the staff in the Wells Fargo Center, they were starting to break down everything, and the courts is one of the things. They have to lower the courts. In order to do that, they have to go up on a ladder. Well, Giannis was trying to practice free throws after the game because he shot so poorly, and he got so exasperated with not being able to practice. He knocked over this huge ladder, one of the biggest ladders I've ever seen. But just to be fair, there's two sides to every story. Before that, you had on the other end, Giannis was shooting, and I think it was Montrezl Harrell took the basketball and was antagonizing Giannis, saying, look, you're not from Philly, get off the court. They had some words, and then Giannis had to go down the other end where they were already breaking down the court. So my question, let's go to Chris first. Chris, what do you make of that incident where he knocked over the ladder because he wasn't allowed to shoot free throws after the game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not ideal to knock down a ladder in that circumstance. I mean, it's relatively poor treatment of like the arena staff or the camera staff or whoever was doing that. It's like not a great move. But at the end of the day, we're probably overblowing it a little bit. I don't think it's some huge indictment on Giannis's character. I think the Montrez stuff was pretty stupid too. Like, you let the guy shoot free throws. Players shoot on opposing courts after games all the time. We've seen Embiid do it. Like, it's not an uncommon thing. You let the guy shoot his free throws. There's no shortage of basketballs in that stadium, in that arena. It's not hard to go get a different basketball. Like, Montrez is obviously a bit of an antagonist just by personality. He's one of those guys who likes to get under people's skin. But the game's over. Like, probably not the best time for that. And I don't think Montrez is in the right, you know? So I can understand why Giannis would be a bit frustrated by that. Should he have pushed over the ladder? No. Probably didn't mean to push it all the way over like that. I think that was an accident. You know, he's a strong guy. Probably didn't mean to push that hard. But, yeah, he went a little far. But I think Montrez probably riled him up. You know, shouldn't have riled him up like that. There's no good reason to do that. I don't think it accomplished anything.
So, I think everybody in that situation was an a-hole, to be honest. Because, look, Montrez was an a-hole. Giannis was an a-hole. Even the arena staff, he said he only had 2 more free throws to make, and then he was done. The staff could have let him just shoot 2 more free throws. Like, that was kind of like, look, I know the staff has a job, but, like, you could have let the guy shoot 2 more free throws. But, like, at the end, everybody was an a-hole in this situation. Giannis, Montrez, the arena staff, everybody was an a-hole. I don't think it's an indictment on his character. I think they had a sucky loss. He played terribly from the foul line. He was upset with himself. Did he handle it the best way? No, but nobody's perfect. And outside of this, I don't think we can really say Giannis has had any major character flaws. So I'm not putting any stock into this.
Well, I'm putting all my stock, and I'm saying Giannis knows better. He was completely wrong. these staffers, it's like 10 o'clock at night. They want to get home. Doesn't take 5 minutes to break down everything. And Giannis, look, just because you feel like you want to shoot after a game doesn't mean you are entitled to shoot after a game. It's funny. Last night we were leaving the Minnesota game, and I like to wait because I don't like the crowds and trying to get to your car. So there was a security guard down near the court, and we locked eyes, and he's like, "All right, time to go." And I was like, "Look, I'm just waiting for somebody to knock over a ladder in here." And he started laughing. And but at the end of the day, I think Giannis should have exercised more prudence. But he was ticked off because he shot so poorly. So I kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean, like Montrez went and shot on the other end, though. It's not like players weren't shooting. So it's not.
Oh, he was wrong.
So
two wrongs don't make a right? Knocking over.
I mean, like generally speaking, I think the players are like they do have the privilege of being able to go out there and shoot after games. Like,
a lot of players do that. That's not anything new. I think what happened is Montrez pissed off Giannis a lot to where Giannis had to go back in the locker room, compose himself, and then when he came back out, I think that's when they started breaking down because there was nobody on the court then. I think that was what led to it all.
Yeah, and I agree. It's like the arena staff is probably not in the wrong here. I don't think it's their fault. I don't think they were trying to antagonize them. Like those guys have deadlines. They got to get home. They got to get on the road, whatever. So I'm not blaming them at all. They're least to blame here. And Giannis shouldn't have pushed the ladder. But there are many factors at play here. So I don't, in the end, it doesn't really change my opinion on Giannis as a person. It's just, probably an accident.
We can all agree he's a horrible human being. And on that note, we're going to transition. All right. Of all franchises with some of the worst cases of luck when it comes to injury, the Sixers just can't put that to rest. We have some injuries, guys. We obviously know that James Harden was injured a few weeks back. He's still out. Tyrese Maxey during the Milwaukee game. You guys discussed it earlier. But how concerned are you guys that these two star guards are starting guards and Harris has missed several games? Should we really be concerned about this, or do you think that the Sixers will be fine like in the next couple of games?
Who do you want to answer first?
How about you, Lucas? You go first this time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Look, the 3 out of the 4 core 4 is injured right now. Yes, I'm bringing back core 4.
Core 4.
Core 4. We should make that a soundbite. Anyway, but no, like, look, Tobias Harris, when everybody's healthy, he's just a glorified role player. Yes, Chris?
What if Melton's better than Tobias?
I disagree.
Wow, I might be on Chris's side for that.
What? Okay, explain your case.
Did you see him shooting last night?
Okay, yes, but for the most part of the season, he hasn't been shooting like that.
Time out. What is
he doesn't get as many minutes.
Offensive role for Tobias Harris?
What's the ideal offensive role?
Yeah.
3-and-D.
Third scorer, probably.
Okay. Who is just as good, if not better, at spot-up shooting than Tobias Harris? And who is miles and miles better on the defensive end?
Okay. Are you saying better player for this team or better player overall? Because for this team, you have an argument. But better player overall, I disagree with you strongly.
Well, I mean, Tobias could score more points somewhere else, but that team's not going to be any good. It's like empty calories at a certain point. But okay, continue. Sorry.
Okay, anyway, going back to the original subject. Look, so you're missing 3 of your top 4 scorers. It's not going to be easy. I think, especially with the guards here, we talked about the fact that you have 2 all-star guards. But then after that, guys, you have Shake Milton, who, on most NBA teams would probably be a third guard in the rotation. Like, we love that he has these one-hitter games or 1 or 2-hitter games where he goes off for like 20-plus points. But for the most part, he's not the most consistent shooter. Or at least he hasn't been for the last couple of years. Now, if he can pull this off while, Maxey and Harden are out, kudos, absolutely. But I don't think we trust. Yes.
Are you going to sit here and tell me that Shake's not a consistent shooter and then suggest that we should sign Avery Bradley or Eric Bledsoe?
Okay, look.
He didn't
haven't
say
gotten
that yet,
to that
though.
point. Chris is referring to a conversation that we had earlier in our group chat, and I'm going to get there. But I was going to wait until the next question before
I'm
we
sorry.
got there.
I'm sorry.
And also, you're raising your hand like one of my students. Actually, no, you're better than most of the students that I have because you actually raise your hand. I'm sure Uriah can relate on that one.
I think that hand is like there's some sarcasm going up.
Oh,
with that
absolutely.
elbow.
But at least he's actually doing it, which is more than what I can say for my students. But no, look, like Shake Milton's not a guy that runs your offense. The offense has been running through Joel, and while Joel is more than a capable playmaker, having another guard who can bring the ball up, who can initiate the offense on a regular basis, because we know Melton and Shake are more combo guards, especially Melton's more of a 2 than a 1. Like, I think you have an open roster spot. I think it's worth looking at the free agent market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Chris, now you can go.
Yeah. Look, I mean, obviously, I'm concerned about the general fact that Harden and Maxey are going to be out for a while. Like, that hurts the Sixers quite a bit. There's no two ways about it. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Long term, and I'm still, like I've said this all season, I'm really pretty chill about the team overall. Like, I'm not panicking yet. They have more than enough time between now and the playoffs to get everyone back and to get things on the right track. Like once this team is healthy, they're already making a lot of progress defensively. I think they'll be fine in the long run. But like it sucks that Harden and Maxey are both going to be out at the same time. That hurts the offense quite a bit. But like Melton and Shake have both been really good the past couple nights. I think those are both guys Philly can rely on in a pinch for 30 minutes a night. Furkan has been out.
Like, as long as both of them are going to be out, because Harden's out at least for another 2 weeks.
Sure.
Maxey's out for 3 to 4.
Sure.
Furkan's out too.
Gets back soon. He gets back sooner than them, though, I would assume. I think. And I probably prefer him to most of the free agent guards Philly could sign, as far as someone to just throw in there for fun. Jaden Springer. I don't know if
Furkan is fun, but Jaden Springer cannot run an offense. He's a shooting guard. He's not
you don't really need guys to run the offense with Joel, though. You just need to get Joel the ball in the middle of the floor. And I think both Melton and Milton are capable of doing that. None of the guys you were about to list can really run the offense either, so it's okay.
So why don't we go down that list, Lucas? Who, in your opinion, could the Sixers sign as insurance, just in case? I mean, let's say we lose another guard.
There's a few options here, and like
Avery
part
Bradley.
of my idea here is guys that Doc Rivers is actually willing to play, because whether or not they're the best option. Chris, I know. Yes, sir. Go ahead, raise your hand.
They signed Montrez because Doc would actually play him, and all we do is complain about the fact that they signed Montrez because now Doc plays him, and it makes them worse. Why would we do it again? Why do we care what Doc wants to do? Don't pander to Doc.
Okay. Well, let me name off some names.
Wait a minute, Chris. Would you say that to Pop? Come on, man. Would you say that to Pop? Watch it now.
Playing Charles Bassey.
Watch it. Oh, yeah.
Shots fired.
That is true.
Yes. So look, here's just some names. I don't think any of them are like home run hitters because the free agent market is pretty dried up right now. I don't think there's any G Leaguers off the top of my head that are really like outside of like a couple of vets that I'm going to mention here. Chris, can I get to the list?
All right, go. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so here's who I got so far. I have Avery Bradley, former Doc guy, combo guard. Can you spread
is
the
this
floor?
going alphabetically, or is this by like how good they are?
This
is that because he's okay?
No particular order.
Because if he was at the top of your talent list, I'm worried.
No.
All right.
Eric Bledsoe, another former Doc guy. Wasn't really an efficient shooter last year in Portland, but is still a really good defender and can play make.
Understatement of the year. Sorry.
Alfred Payton can't shoot. I'll be honest there, but he is a great defender and good playmaker. Chris Dunn, really good defender.
Also can't shoot.
Yeah, that's the problem with most. Trey Burke.
Oh, God.
Trey Burke, yeah.
Yeah,
No.
look, I am all for Trey Burke. He might be at the top of my list.
Wait a minute.
What?
Okay, keep going. You got to say something. You haven't said a really good guy that could help us technically.
Jared
offensively.
Butler, he was on.
No,
He was on Utah
Kemba.
last year.
Kemba Walker is still
Okay,
out there.
No,
See,
I'm not
that's a
saying
good-
Kemba Walker. I know better.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
I'd take Kemba.
Kimbo would be miles better than Avery Bradley. Come on.
Okay,
I
well,
agree.
okay, Chris, do you have anybody in mind? Okay,
Avery
let's.
Bradley is garbage.
There's a reason why Kemba has not been signed, and of course, I'm going to say Isaiah Thomas because I love Isaiah.
There's also a reason that Avery Bradley hasn't been signed.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Mac McClellan sounds better than all those guys to me.
Is he a point guard? Is he a point?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He can
6'2",
could create.
dribbles the ball a lot.
Can he
He's a
create
bunch
for
of
others,
ball
though,
players.
Uriah? That's my
Yeah.
biggest thing. Can you create
Yeah.
for others? If you can create for
Yes.
others, I'm
Bradley-
interested.
Is not some like wizard ball handler who creates for others. Bradley's like a 6'2" guard. End of the day,
Okay.
you're not going to find anyone who can replicate what James does. The offense is going to flow through Joel. You just need guys to get
You
Joel
can-
the ball. You don't really need a true point guard in that sense. So
Well, okay, so here's the caveat of all this, guys. It doesn't matter who we talk about because the Sixers don't have the cap room to sign them anyway.
they can sign all those guys to minimum contracts. None of
No,
those
no,
guys
no.
are getting.
Chris, if we sign anybody to a minimum contract, it triggers the hard cap.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we can't get anybody unless triggering the hard cap, which I don't think we want to do. So, not until after the trade deadline. So, I don't think that all the talk that we're talking about right now, unless they make a trade for somebody that makes less, like you trade Korkmaz for like a minimum contract, you're not gonna get a point guard right now. That's the biggest issue because the hard cap. I think we're about 300,000 below the hard cap, and no minimum contract unless you go for non-guaranteed. Like the guaranteed date is like in February or something. Then you might be able to do it, but like I don't. And like 10 days don't start until January, so the Sixers are kind of up the creek without a paddle.
Well, earlier you mentioned Mac McClung, and in the game that I watched, and it's just one game, but to score 44 points at any level when he's on the court with guys, the Toronto G League team is almost identical to the pro team. They chuck up 3-pointers like it's going out of style, and they got all long defenders that can switch and do some things defensively. When he was on the court, Mac McClung, like before that, like they would do a lot of dribble handoffs, but when the game progressed, he would like dribble at the top of the key and he would call up for a pick, and he would take that pick and he would either drive and dish to like someone open, or he would go to the basket with no issues at all. I mean, he was just
he was a former
obsessed
All-American. I'm interested in him. There's a reason why the Blue Coats signed him, or I think they signed him. I
Guys,
don't know if it was a sign
G
or a
League
draft.
MVP, following in the footsteps of Paul Reed. He's a good player.
there you go.
My dream trade that I'm just gonna put out into the universe. It's never gonna happen because even New York's not this stupid. But Matisse and whatever stuff is necessary for Emmanuel Quickly is my new let's make it happen, y'all.
What?
Because clearly the Knicks are trying to get rid of guards for some reason.
Why would the Knicks
For
get rid
whatever
of him?
reason, it seems like they're open
They wouldn't
to
trade
trading.
quickly for Donovan Mitchell, so I don't think Matisse is gonna be.
I'm just saying. I don't know. He's shooting
look.
38% and playing 20 minutes a night.
Reuniting quickly and Maxey would certainly be fun because they both played at Kentucky together. And I look, if that happened, I would be ecstatic. But I don't see a
It's not going to
path
happen.
for it. We don't have
It's
maybe
not.
we have one draft pick right now that we can trade. We lost 2 second rounders already thanks to the PJ Tucker Daniel House stuff. So I don't see it happening.
I know. Let a man dream, okay?
Okay.
I preface that with the fact that it's not going to happen. I'm just throwing out stuff.
Now, look, if you can get a trade for Thibault and Korkmaz for a quality backup guard, cool. But remember, this is all just a temporary fix. So, do you trade Maxey for a temporary fix? I mean, Thibault for a temporary fix? I don't know if I do that because, like, once Harden and Maxey come back, you might you probably there were times where Milton wasn't playing at all. There was no need for him to play.
Right.
So I don't know if I do that. Like,
He'll
look,
be
if
back
you can
too.
trade
Well,
Korkmaz
just as
for
an
one,
example.
cool, but I wouldn't trade Thibault.
Just as an example.
Yeah, I got you.
It's not going to happen. If they traded for Quickly, he would play once those guys got back.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah,
sure
no.
Thibault
It would
play
just cut
once those
into
guys got back. So-
Melton's minutes. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, he would play.
Or it doesn't even have to cut into Melton's minutes. It can cut into House's minutes and whoever else. But yeah, if you get a good enough player back, they will still play once James and Tyrese come back. It just depends on who you get.
Can we talk about the Knicks for a second here? Because I think they're going about this all wrong.
We're kind of coming up
Okay,
on 40
okay,
minutes.
okay.
We can save that for next time.
Okay. But I do want to vent about the Knicks eventually and how they're not developing
Yeah.
their young guys correctly.
Yeah. All right, Chris, it's time to take us on out.
Okay, to all our listeners, as always, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Sixer Sense podcast. Please like, subscribe, and follow along if you can. We are on YouTube, as well as Audible, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or you can find us on the web at thesixersense.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at SixerSense for as long as Twitter is still a thing. So until next time, peace out. Go Sixers. We'll talk to you soon.